So overwhelmed. Thank y'all. It's good to be here. This scene is always crazy, right? Because there's so much to look at and people to listen to and gear to look at. How many of you are overwhelmed in this setting? Any of you? My hand is raised. This is all very overwhelming. My name is Jeremy Cowart. I'm a native. I'm from Nashville, Tennessee. Born here and raised here, so I've been here a long time. I shoot a lot of different things for a living. For about 15 years, I've been shooting entertainment and artists and celebrities, and I've done a lot of humanitarian work around the world as well. I'll show you just a quick glimpse and overview of my website, if I can find where it is. Here we go. So this is just a general intro of what I do. I shoot a lot of portraiture. All of it is pretty on the artistic experimental side. Is anybody else ADD like I am? Like super scatterbrained? Yes. Well, I'm maybe the worst. I get so bored very quickly. As amazing as digital cameras are, they're so good that they're so reliable and consistent that I have to do things to mix it up and to make it not consistent. And so over the past couple of years, I've really invented a new process that is extremely experimental in nature. I call it like a contrived happy accident. Like I'm trying to make weird things happen. I'm trying, almost taking a film approach, because in the film days, which those days still exist, because a lot of people shoot film, but there's a lot of things that you can't control, happy accidents. So with digital, I'm trying to do the same thing and create an environment where I can't get the same results twice. So 2 days ago on Sunday was really the first time I've ever shown anybody my full process. Today I'm doing it again, but I'm showing you the gear I use more specifically. All of the gear I use is in this room behind me. So I'll show you all how that all breaks down. But again, here's some of my work. My website is jeremycowart.com. You can browse it later. So do y'all want to know how my process works? Okay, good. Before I do, though, I'm going to give you a little more context and tell you why I kind of started over. So as a commercial photographer, I actually got a little burnout over the years. Again, I think a lot of it was derived in boredom. I just was doing the same tricks over and over, the same lighting, the same, all that good stuff. And so I wanted to do something to mix it up. But again, I got burnout. And so here are some of the reasons I got burnout. A lot of times on my commercial sets, there were too many cooks in the kitchen. There were way too many opinions. There was no intimacy. When somebody's standing in front of my camera, they already feel super vulnerable. They feel afraid. And when you have 20 people on set analyzing every wrinkle in their shirt and every bad expression and all that, it gets really overwhelming. And so I realized, I actually love smaller, more intimate sets where it's one-on-one, time to respond to my talent. So another reason is somehow this is just science. Every time I do a commercial shoot, they publish the worst photo I took. Every time. It's just science. I could show y'all so many album covers I've shot where it's like they took the worst image and published it. And a lot of photographers say, why don't you just trim the fat and not show those photos to begin with? Well, I do, but they still pick the worst photo that I shot. And so anyway, I like to have control of the images I show and release. So yeah, I just covered that slide. A lot of commercial shoots, when you shoot, you want to show the images, right? You want to share things. Pretty soon after you do it, well, a lot of times I've realized on commercial shoots, I can't show the work till like months and months later, 6 months, a year later, and it just gets, by the time it releases, I no longer like the work. And so that's another reason that I got bummed out. Other people mess with your photos or retouch it. It's crazy. I'll do these big shoots, and the agency I shoot for, the client or the record label, they'll like give my photos to like a new intern they just hired or a junior level graphic designer. They throw all this stuff on top of the image. They throw a really bad font on it. Then the packaging says photography by Jeremy Cowart. And I'm like wishing I could not get credit, you know? And so basically you don't have control. Experimentation can be a challenge. A lot of times, believe it or not, there's not a lot of creativity on commercial shoots. Sometimes I feel like I'm just there to push a button. So a lot of shoots involve too much travel. I'm a dad. I'm like a homebody. I want to be with my family quite a bit. So I didn't love the travel. I was always flying around the country, which to some, and during that season, it was fun. But I got to a point where I didn't want to be traveling all the time. So I got, like, over the last couple of years, again, I got to a point where I really just wanted to start playing more. Not only playing more, but I wanted to invent a new business model, because I realized that as a commercial photographer, I don't know what y'all charge, but I started to break down all the commercial shoots I was doing, and I averaged the day rate I was making, right, as a commercial photographer. And I realized, like, I've never had a day rate, first of all. I've always relied on the client to provide the budget. You tell me what your budget is, and I'll tell you if I'm game to shoot it or not. And so what I've realized over time is that most shoots, when I'm talking smaller advertising, musicians, record labels, in this town, I can't speak for other towns, but in Nashville, they broke down to about $1,000 an hour, which sounds amazing, right? If we're always shooting at $1,000 an hour, we'd be making a lot of money. But commercial photography is up and down. Some shoots, I don't do a single shoot a month. Some months I shoot, 6 or 7 times a month, but I'm never doing that all day, every day. And so I wanted to invent a business model that I could teach other photographers to do. What if I could make that same day rate every day, shooting everyday people? So I came up with $250 for 15-minute windows. If 4 sessions are booked, that's $1,000 an hour. And to my surprise, I started to book a lot of sessions using Squarespace. Any of y'all have a Squarespace website? They're awesome. They have a widget called Acuity. Acuity software is a booking thing you can plug into your website, and it is basically your virtual assistant. It connects to your iCal. It does all these cool things. You get paid 100% up front. Can I get an amen? So you get paid 100% up front through this software, and it just makes my life so much easier. So I said goodbye to clients temporarily, and I was like, I'm going to try to offer this to the public. And the only thing that applies to you that you can change is the price you charge and the time you spend. So even if there's a high school photographer in there, chances are good that you can charge $10 for 15 minutes, $20. So your friends, your community will pay you for you to use your camera. You just have to figure out in your own life what price you can charge and how long you want to spend for that price. Anyway, so on my website, there's a button called Learn in the top navigation, and you can click that right here, and it's called the Camera Money Workshop, and I teach in the business workflow. I'm not teaching that today, which is why I'm pointing y'all here now, because it's how I teach you the Acuity software, the whole workflow in terms of the business. But back to the creative. The other thing I wanted to do is I wanted to experiment and just try all kinds of weird stuff, but then try to find the clientele that would want the types of images that I liked. Are y'all familiar with Peter Hurley? You know, Peter's teaching up here. Peter's headshot look is gorgeous. I'm a big fan. I think it's the best look the industry has to offer. But I wanted like the opposite from Peter Hurley. I wanted the weird, the dark, the experimental, you know, all that. So So I wanted to start with slow shutter speed. So I'm always, like typically when I'm doing a portrait, I'll shoot at like 1/25th of a second, right? Well, I wanted to shoot at like a sixth of a second or a 15th of a second. And so like just weird, I just wanted to see what happened. And so I started getting really cool stuff with slow shutter speeds. Then I decided to introduce the idea of projectors. Has anybody ever shot with a projector before? It will and can change your life. I think I'm the only photographer that at least I know of that is always, what's up, John? That is always shooting with projectors. The trick is there's something called ultra short throw projectors. That means that if my whole studio setup is about that wide in a square. So like my whole thing I do every day, day in and day out, is like this. But I have a projector mounted right here that shoots and covers this whole entire wall. Because if you put a projector up here and the subject is right here, guess what's going to happen? You're going to have a big shadow on the wall. They're black outline. So when you use an ultra short throw projector, it's basically creating any background you want without having to composite, without having to use a green screen. It is the game changer. But the trick is you have to have a bright projector. So lumens is the key to finding a good projector. You want a projector with a lot of lumens. So Canon actually makes projectors, and they're really amazing. And so I actually have, today I did some screenshots of which gear I specifically use. Pull up this folder. So this is what my Canon projector looks like. They have really long names, but I have two of these. And again, one of those covers my entire wall. So there's all these backdrop companies here, right? You can Photoshop a backdrop, but I'm like, screw that. I'm just gonna project my backdrops. So I created a folder in Adobe Bridge where I put 400 images into this folder. And so when I turn my projector on, I've got my backdrop changing every 2 seconds. It is insane. I literally can't get the same image twice because every time I shoot, a different projected image is loading, and it is so fun. In a minute, I'm going to show you an actual photo shoot I did, and you'll see file by file how the images are constantly changing. Then I have a second projector like this that is turned vertical and is shooting across the set. So basically you have a projected image there and then a projected image that's hitting like this. So 45 degrees across my set. Now my talent is standing right here. So what's happening is I'm projecting onto their face and their whole body. And then I have a different background behind them. This projector is also changing the image every 2 seconds. It's the wildest thing ever. My assistant, Kathleen, is here. She can attest that when we have people on set, they are literally screaming in delight because they've never seen anything like it. I can't shoot the same portrait twice. The bad news is if I get something really amazing, it's really hard to recreate it. So the other thing that I came up with years ago, and I don't know if anybody else in the industry is doing this, but I do it every day, is I rotate my strobes. How many of you shoot with strobes? A lot of you? So again, I got bored with lighting. Like that's my theme. I get really bored. But I figured out a way, or I started to wonder, is there a way to have a strobe right here with a big softbox? And by the way, if any of you are wondering, I shoot with the Canon 5DS. And the reason is I'm a resolution junkie. I know a lot of people, resolution isn't your number one thing, but for me, I want resolution. But I also want speed. I've shot medium format cameras before, but you just can't shoot as fast as I would like to shoot. So I found that the 5DS is the perfect, like, super large file that can also tether really fast. And I use a company called Tether Tools. Their booth is right over here, and all their gear, the orange cables, they have a new thing called Air Direct, where you can shoot and send your images wirelessly to your computer. So 5DS and my Air Direct. But back to strobes. So I started to wonder, can I have a softbox right here lighting my subject? Yes, I can do that. Can I have another light right here? Again, my talent is over here. So can I have another strobe right here? Can I have one of these guys, literally like these, backlighting the rims of the faces? Then can I have another strobe right here, lighting my talent this way? Then can I have another strobe right here? Then every time I shoot, can I get a different strobe to fire? And I figured out a way to do it. So now every time I take a portrait, I'm lighting my talent different ways. So it goes A, B, C, D, E, all the way around. Even when I shoot on burst mode, it's like, brrr, I just hold my trigger down, and the lights are going, brrr. And so each file looks completely different. It is insane. I'll actually go ahead and show you so you can visualize what I'm talking about. I'll go ahead and show you a photo shoot. So 1 second. I'm pulling it up. I'm going to mirror my screens again so y'all can see what I'm doing. All right, so this is Capture One Pro. This is the program I use to edit in. So these are not, what you're seeing are the raw files. These are not edited. I haven't taken any. I literally just copied the whole shoot folder over. So watch this. It's pretty cool, right? Like I can't shoot the same picture twice if I tried. And you see the backdrops changing every few seconds. It is an ADD scatterbrain dream come true. And the other thing I'm adding, see the flares on her face? I'm adding Lens Baby is here, and they make this thing called the Omni filter system. It's like little prisms you can attach to your glass. Now, typically those can get really old and they can get cheesy, let's be honest. But because my light is always changing and rotating, that means the prisms and the flares are also always changing. Again, these are raw files. I'll show you all the, so like you see that my exposure, my contrast, all of that is just flattened out. So these are mostly unedited. She was a really great model. I do have some favorites that I saved here. So here's a few. These are unretouched. They haven't been, that's one of my favorites. But it's so cool because the models have never seen this before either. They've never seen the lighting change every single frame. So there you'll see where the light was in front of her coming down. Then the light was to her left coming over. Then these lights were behind her coming forward. I had a projector coming from the side. I had a projector lighting the background. It's pure chaos. I'm going really fast. Y'all can interrupt me with a hand raised if anybody has a question, because I know I'm moving fast. Any questions yet? Nobody? All right. Another thing I've utilized is this company called LifeX. You can go to, Best Buy. Let me pull up there. So this company called LifeX, they just make simple light bulbs. And I thought, what if I built my own ring light and I attach these light bulbs so I can have these light bulbs change colors every like 0.5 seconds. So I built a ring light made of 12 of these bulbs. They're always changing colors. So that's another layer I've got so that when here's my setup. Here's behind the scenes. So you'll see there's my ring light with these LifeX light bulbs. So I shoot through that, right? And then I have, hopefully in some of these you can see all my strobes surrounding me. So I have a light right there next to them, a big light. There's my camera with my pocket wizard. So to trigger the lights, this is how you do it. There's something called a pocket wizard multi-max. And you can use the multi-max to tell light A to fire first, then B, then C, then D. It's called speed cycler mode. And that's how I'm able to make a different strobe fire each time. And there you see, if you see the white box, that's my projection. That's one projector changing the backdrop every 2 seconds. I'm always got my desk. I'm always tethering to my monitor. And then, so back to the LifeX, this is what happens. See all the weird colors on our face? I could never, well, I probably could, but it'd be difficult to get that look with strobes. So now watch how the colors change each frame. None of that is post. That is all in camera, and that's because that ring light I built, all those light bulbs are twinkling different colors. So 12 bulbs that are green, red, yellow, blue, white, green, red, And so it's like this rainbow that I can't control. So you add that in with the rotating strobes, in with the backdrops changing every 2 seconds, and you just get this really, really bizarre, happy accident. Here's a couple more portraits I've shot with it. Because again, I just like weird fill colors. I shoot at usually a 20 or a 30th of a second, and that allows those light bulbs to bleed in. The strobes fire, the shutter stays open, and these colors come in and just fill the face. The good news is, a lot of this gear here at this conference is really expensive. You can get colored light bulbs for $30 at Home Depot, Best Buy. You can get these really cheap. The strobes I use are much more expensive. So I'm always a fan of people trying new things for a very low budget. You can go buy one light bulb, go buy one color bulb, and hold it up and just see what can happen. I'm also a big fan of ProPhoto. They released a new portable light, a strobe for the iPhone. Has anybody seen this or know what I'm talking about? It's called the C1 and C+. You also can attach colors to that. And so it attaches to mobile devices, and you can do lots of cool stuff with that. So the idea here is that even though I'm promoting my setup or talking about my setup, you don't have to have all the crazy strobes and all the thousands of dollars of gear. There are a lot of photographers making a great name for themselves, a great living, using very, very minimal gear. I don't know if y'all have ever heard of the Home Depot challenge, where photographers have to go out to Home Depot and just buy random stuff and try to make cool portraits. I love that because you can always make cool portraits with any kind of lighting. In fact, that's why I love, Canon calls their ambassador program the Explorers of Light, and that is essentially what we do, is explore light. This is the eyeball of Kelly Clarkson. I shot this years ago, and that was the first shoot I ever used, the colored light bulbs. And all of them were changing colors every 0.5 seconds. So she loved it. She was freaking out. It was awesome. I also just literally shake my camera a lot because I just like not knowing what's going to happen. So I leave my camera on a tripod connected with my Tether Tools cable, and I'll shoot at a 30th of a second, and each time I shoot, I'll just yank it and just pull it. Click, click, and my tripod, I've broken a few of them doing that, but tripods are replaceable. But I'm always just trying stuff. So the camera shake, the LED light bulbs changing every 0.5 seconds, a different big diffuser, flash A, B, C, D, and then backdrops, 400 backdrops changing every 2 seconds, backdrops changing on my talent's face every 2 seconds. It is a thing of beauty. It's so fun to explore. So here are some more portraits I've shot. All of these again, I just want to reiterate, all the portraits you're about to see have been shot on a little 15 by 15 foot space with only a white wall, all right? That's all I use in my studio is a white wall. I used to hate studio photography. Now I'm obsessed with it because of this process, because I've learned how to do so much. So again, the flares you see there, those are the Omni filter from Lens Baby. the projection changing in the back. She barely moved between these two portraits. Then I use Capture One Pro instead of Lightroom, and I've either made or purchased all kinds of presets in Capture One Pro, and I now have hundreds of them, both that I've created and that I've just bought somewhere. And I love starting with presets and then editing them and making them my own. But all of this is also in camera. There's no like layers added in Photoshop. There's no, the only post I ever do is basic, increase my contrast, tweak the white balance, make it bluer or yellower or greener. And then it's been hard to figure out what to project. That's been the other challenge. And so I would say 90% of the images I project are things that I've shot or created or textures I've made. I'll show you all the folder. So these are just random images. You know how I created this? Is I just took an iPad and just made a quick doodle in a program called Procreate, and I exported JPEG into this folder that's on Dropbox, and voila, I've got just random quick textures. So a lot like this is me taking a piece of paper, taking some charcoal and just scribbling for a second. That's a backdrop. Because then as soon as I scribble it, shoot it, upload it to Dropbox, that image now covers this entire wall, and then it kind of blurs out when I've got my subject in front of it. And I've just created a backdrop in 2 minutes, and then made it 20 by 15 feet. This is me playing with acrylic paint. Then I inverse it and I explore, and these all become my backdrops. And once I hit play, this is actually what happens on my photo shoot. So literally at this speed, I just love the accidents. Like I think sometimes photographers, we so have to get things dialed in perfectly. Most explorers of light are amazing at teaching that. I try to teach the opposite. Like, let's let all the rules go. Let's just forget about everything we've learned and just try crap. Most of my favorite images are just from me just throwing stuff at the wall and seeing what sticks. So I used to, everywhere I go, I'd take a camera and I would just shoot textures really close up. Like I'd go out there and I'd photograph the ground. My first ever camera was a Canon G1. It was a 3 megapixels. 3 megapixels, that was in 2001. And I was so excited to finally have a little texture scanner. That's all I'll do. I'll just go around and shoot textures. And now I'm so glad because I have these just thousands of textures I've shot. This was shot in Chicago a couple weeks ago. And I just love to scan textures because now they can become these massive backdrops on my photo shoots. The other thing I've done is I'm a Canon printer. So everything I do, I use Canon. My cameras, my lenses, but also my projectors and my printers. And so I had a good idea. A couple years ago, I was in a rush. I was like, I'm going to draw a backdrop. So I got out Procreate, my iPad, and I created a file that was 40 inches wide, like 40 inches wide by 80 inches tall. I drew a backdrop, 10 minutes, printed it at that same size, this big by really, really tall, and I made a physical backdrop. And so I just love to be able to think of new ways to put people in different places. I want to show you all one more photo shoot I did using projection. So a few years ago, a client wanted to go to Canada to do a photo shoot. But as many clients, this happens all the time, they couldn't afford it. They didn't have the budget to fly us to Canada to go to the beach where the artists live. I was like, you know what? I think I can bring us to Canada in my studio. And so I went and found some images on our like royalty-free, license-free type website. And I projected the images, and then I used strobes to match the lighting. And so all of these images you're seeing are done against a white wall with no compositing, no Photoshop. The only thing I did was add contrast in Capture One Pro. I especially love this one because this really looks like we went to the beach. So that's shot with a 5DS probably a 24 to 70 lens with a Canon projector projecting the beach backdrop. It's so cool. The client was freaking out. They couldn't believe it that we were getting these looks without having to rely on compositing or Photoshop. So it's so fun, so fun. Oh, here's another look at my rotating strobes. So see how the lighting is constantly changing? She barely even moves, and I've relit her pretty much for almost every frame. There's 4 lighting setups. So again, I'm ADD. I like to have diversity. I like to have options. Because some people may love the way they look with the light coming from right here. Some might love their silhouette. Some might love the light from over here. We don't know until we try it. And it used to be a lot harder because I would have to shoot, then move my lights, try a new lighting setup, then shoot again, then remove my lights. Now I literally have lights surrounding my talent, and I just shoot them all and see what happens. This is one of the favorites this year that I shot on a projected backdrop. Then I use one more strobe to overpower everything. I just blast it because I do want one super bright, cleaner look. And again, all that's doing is just full power strobe. The others are really low power, so I'm able to just blast it all, knock out the backdrop, knock out everything, and get this really clean look. With all the lights surrounding my person, each frame, really 1 or 2 lights are firing. So again, my studio is like a box right here. This light fires by itself. Then a side light fires by itself. The only combo I have is I have 2 backlights that create this rim. I just like silhouetting the body. But then I have my ring light going the whole time. So that only adds a little bit of color. It's not super bright. It's not as bright as my strobes. So it's just filling in a little bit of color on those long shutter speeds. So after these 2 fire, another strobe fires from over here. And so it's really A, B, C, D. And then I just love all the options. You'll be amazed. Sometimes you should shoot self-portraits because you'll realize that you might look awful from this angle. You might look amazing from that angle. Like, you just have to try it. Somebody else had a question. I'm deaf. I'm sorry. Yes. So, but I like them all to be soft, so they're all big, and they all have grids on them. That's a big thing I forgot to mention. So when I'm using all these strobes, I do not want to light the backdrop at all, because if the light hits the backdrop, it washes out the projector. And by the way, the reason I don't do this live is because there's too much light, right? Because when you have a projector, like I have blackout curtains in my studio, I have to have my studio pitch black or else this does not work. So if you're going to try shooting with projection, find a dark space. That's why I can't do it with all this light, because we wouldn't have results. So I put grids. If you don't know what a grid is, this is a grid right here. And that is meant to direct the light. So if I put the grid like this, it's going to bleed onto the wall. So when my talent stands here, I put the grid like this, and that is meant to only light this way and not hit the wall. If I take that grid off, that light's going to be all over the wall. So I have these waffle-looking grids on every single diffuser except for the big one, because I know this light is just going to wash out everything. So grids on all my lights to really direct and keep the light focused. Yeah, so you might have missed that earlier. I use Lens Baby Omni filters. They are prisms that you can attach to your lens. So these guys literally attach to the front of my lens, and they're so fun to play with because they create all these weird ethereal things that I can't get otherwise. And you're right, some of it does look Photoshop, but I promise, the only time we use Photoshop is when we retouch skin. But most of what y'all saw just now, none of that is even retouched. So, yeah, all of the weird texture overlays and effects are done by these. Again, these are Lens Baby, and they are here. I forget which booth, but they're here somewhere. Thanks for asking. Who else? Yes. What's that? Yes. So they have. I shoot with a Canon 24-70 in the 85 millimeter, and it comes with a ring that attaches to the front of your lens, and then those prisms magnetically just stick to the front of the lens. So then you can just tweak it. That's a really cool thing, is you can get repeatable results. So you can leave the prism there without, used to you'd have to like hold your DSLR and try to hold something, but these just attach and I think I have another picture of it. There we go. So yeah, it looks like that. So it's pretty cool. So I really am combining Canon lenses, Canon DSLRs, Canon projectors, Canon printers, Lens Baby, Pro Photo strobes. It's a big mess. Has this been interesting? Okay, good. I'm glad. Any last questions? Yes, she's asking if I'm hosting any in-person workshops. Probably. It's a good question. I don't know when yet, but I do have something called C University online. C is in S-E-E with your eyes. So C University is also linked from jeremycowart.com, and I have like 150 videos up there that are online for people to watch and learn. Most of all of this is taught separately. I have not done a new class because all of what you just saw is new to me. I mean, it's a brand new system and setup, and I've just been exploring it and playing. But I am in love. I am in love with what can happen. It's unlike anything I've ever, It's unlike anything I've ever experienced because every file is different. And that's the first time I've ever been able to achieve that kind of result. I would add till 2:45, right? It's a good question. He's asking if all these textures I've shot, am I making those files available? I remember back when, 15 years ago, my friend Jesh DeRox, he did that, and I thought that's a good idea. And since then, like textures and stuff like that has been such a big that I think I got intimidated or something. I was like, no one would buy my stuff. There's already plenty of that out there. But yeah, that could be a cool, I would consider that for sure because I have worked so hard at building those for such a long time. But yeah, that's something to consider for sure. Anybody else? Y'all know you're in my backyard. I live here. I'm from here. My first kiss was right out those doors. I brought my 7th grade date to Opryland for our prom, and we kissed right out there. So y'all are in my backyard. Thank you for the applause, Micah. One more question. Anybody? She's asking if I'm showing my Lauren Daigle stuff. So there's an artist named Lauren Daigle. She's a big deal. The good thing about doing personal work is that work will find you. So I did this shoot. Lauren Daigle is a platinum-selling, big deal artist. If you've ever heard of her, she's amazing. She reached out and said, I love this work you're doing. Let's do a shoot. And she usually has big crew, big manager, all that stuff. But she came by herself with one of her best friends. I brought a hair and makeup artist. And we just spent an evening just going crazy, just shooting all kinds of stuff. And I have never had so much fun in my life just playing. That's her standing in the middle of the projector with it half lighting her face, half not. But we got just stunning results. She was freaking out so much that her tour bus was waiting on her with all of her musicians and band, and she made them wait for 2 hours because she wanted to keep shooting. And she said, I want to make a new record just because I love these photos so much. And so that's like the highest compliment somebody could pay. So yeah, those are some of the Lauren. Thank you for asking. That was a fun shoot. I hope I haven't overwhelmed you. I hope this has been interesting. Thank you all for your time.